As the years gather quietly behind us, something shifts in the way we look at life. We stop asking what we will achieve next, and we start wondering what we will leave behind. Not the bank accounts, not the furniture, not the things that can be boxed up. I am talking about the pieces of ourselves that keep living in the hearts of the people we love. Lately, I have found myself thinking about that more often. During slow mornings with a warm cup of coffee, during drives to visit my family, or on those evenings when the house is calm and still. And it hit me one day, a legacy is not the final chapter of a life story. It is something we write little by little through our habits, through our presence, through the way we love and forgive and show up. So today, I want to share the habits that helped me shape the legacy I hope to leave. Habits born from years of living, learning, failing, getting back up, and understanding what truly matters. If you are retired or simply moving into a gentler season of life, my hope is that these reflections bring you comfort, clarity, and a renewed sense of purpose. Habit 1. Emotional generosity. Emotional generosity did not come to me through a single dramatic moment. It grew slowly, shaped by quiet mornings, small misunderstandings, and the realization that the way I make people feel will outlast everything I own. In retirement, when life became slower and the noise faded, I started to notice the emotional footprints I left behind. I started seeing how a gentle tone could calm a worried child, even when that child was technically an adult. How a patient pause during a difficult conversation could bring my family closer instead of pushing them away, and how a simple "I am proud of you" could lift someone for an entire day. There was a time when I thought love was proven through big gestures, but the truth revealed itself in the small choices. Taking a moment to listen fully without planning my reply. Letting go of old frustrations that had been carried far too long. Calling my son or daughter simply to let them know I was thinking of them, not because I needed something or had news to share. Writing a short note to a friend who had been quiet lately. These little acts, repeated day after day, began to form a pattern of gentleness that felt right, felt natural, and felt like something I wanted to leave behind. Emotional generosity is not about perfection. I have my days when I am tired or short-tempered, days when patience hides from me, but even then, I remind myself that every interaction carries weight. The people around me may forget the details of our conversations, but they will remember how valued they felt in my presence. They will remember the comfort, the laughter, the calm, the sense that I saw them fully. In this season of life, I have learned that being emotionally generous is one of the strongest ways to build a beautiful legacy. It is not loud. It is not dramatic. It is the steady warmth that makes a family feel safe, loved, and connected long after we are gone. Habit 2. Preserving family stories and wisdom. There came a point when I realized my memories were becoming softer around the edges, not disappearing, just fading in that gentle way time likes to do. And it stirred something in me, a quiet urgency to make sure the stories that shaped my life did not vanish when I was no longer here to speak them. I wanted my children and grandchildren, even the ones still too young to understand, to know the paths that brought our family to where we stand. So I began capturing my stories in simple ways. I sat in my living room with a cup of warm coffee and spoke into my phone, recording short reflections whenever a memory visited me. Moments from my childhood, lessons learned the hard way, the pride I felt the first time I held my newborn child, the choices I regret, and the choices I would make again in a heartbeat. None of it was rehearsed. It was honest, imperfect, and real. I also started writing small notes, not full chapters, just pieces of truth. Thoughts. I wished someone had told me when I was young. Reminders about resilience, reflections about kindness, insights about navigating tough seasons without losing yourself. These pieces were not written to sound wise. They were written because I wanted the people I love to understand me. to know where they come from, and to feel grounded in a legacy of lived experience. Preserving stories is not about looking backward. It is about giving the next generation a foundation. A family without stories loses its sense of continuity, but a family with shared memories, with recorded wisdom, with moments captured and passed down becomes strong and rooted. When my grandchildren grow older, I hope they open my recordings or read my notes and feel a connection that time cannot take away. These stories, these reflections, are my way of staying with them long after I am gone, offering guidance, warmth, and a gentle reminder that they come from a long line of imperfect, resilient, deeply loving people. Habit 3. Strengthening family bonds intentionally. One of the quiet truths I learned in retirement is that relationships do not survive on autopilot. When the days were busy and the house was loud, family connections seemed to happen naturally. There were school events, weekend errands, shared meals, and the endless rhythm of daily life pulling us together. But when the pace slowed and my children started raising families of their own, I noticed something unexpected. If I did not reach out, long stretches of silence would begin to grow between us, not out of a lack of love, but simply because everyone was wrapped up in their own world. At first, I waited for phone calls, thinking my kids would remember to check in, but they were juggling work, parenting, stress, duties, all the things that once filled my own life. One quiet afternoon, I realized I could keep waiting, or I could choose to be the one who bridges the distance. That day, I sent a simple message to my daughter, nothing dramatic, just letting her know she crossed my mind. Her response was warm and immediate, and it made me understand that the connection I wanted was mine to nurture. So I began creating gentle habits of reaching out. A morning message, wishing someone a good day. A midweek call asking how they were holding up. A handwritten note tucked into a birthday card. A small invitation for dinner, not to celebrate anything special, but simply to be together. And slowly, I noticed something beautiful. When I reached out without expecting anything in return, my family began to circle back around me more often. The gap between us grew smaller, replaced with shared laughter, honest conversations, and a sense of closeness I feared was fading. I learned that strengthening family bonds is not about grand gestures. It is about intention. It is choosing connection, even when life feels busy, or quiet, or uncertain. It is being someone who shows up, not only when things go wrong, but simply because you care. And this effort, repeated gently over time, becomes part of your legacy. It teaches the next generation that family is not defined by blood alone, but by the willingness to reach for one another again and again. When I look back on my life, I want my children and grandchildren to remember the steady presence I offered. I want them to recall the comfort of knowing they could always pick up the phone and hear a voice ready to listen. Connection is not automatic. It is chosen, and choosing it is one of the most meaningful habits I have ever built. Habit 4. Mentoring the younger generation. As I moved deeper into this later chapter of life, I discovered that wisdom grows quietly, almost without us noticing. It collects through failures, heartbreaks, moments of grace, and the small victories we barely celebrated at the time. That wisdom becomes a kind of compass, and I began to see that it held value not just for me, but for the younger people in my life who were still trying to understand the world. I never set out to become a mentor. I never sat down with my children or grandchildren and declared that I had answers they needed. Instead, opportunities appeared in gentle, everyday moments. My grandson once asked me how I handled fear when I was young. My granddaughter wanted to know how I made decisions that shaped my life. A friend of the family asked how I managed to stay grounded during difficult years. In those moments, I shared what I had lived, not as instructions, but as offerings. Honest reflections about choices I made well, choices I regretted, and the lessons that rose out of both. Mentoring is not about telling people what to do. It is about sharing how you navigated your own storms. It is about giving them a place to explore their questions without judgment. It is about letting them know they have someone in their corner who has walked the long road and is willing to walk beside them for a while. Sometimes the younger ones take my advice to heart, and sometimes they do not. I have learned to be at peace with that. Guidance is not meant to control another person's path. It is meant to shine a small light so they can see their own choices more clearly. I want my grandchildren to remember that I listened before I spoke, that I treated their worries with respect, that I believed in their potential, even when they doubted themselves. What I offer is not brilliance or authority. What I offer is experience, a calm voice, and a heart that wants the next generation to thrive. If my words help them avoid one avoidable mistake or recognize one hidden strength, then I have done something worthwhile. Mentoring has become one of the most meaningful parts of my later life. It connects me to the future in a way nothing else can. And when I am no longer here, I hope the people I have guided will carry a piece of my voice with them, reminding them that they are capable, resilient, and worthy of a life they can be proud of. Habit 5. Living with gratitude and purpose. There came a morning in my retirement when I sat with a warm cup of coffee and felt an emptiness I could not quite name. The routines that once pushed my days forward were gone, and in their place was a quiet that felt heavier than I expected. I looked around my home, listened to the soft tick of the clock, and wondered who I was without the long list of tasks that had defined so much of my life. That question stayed with me for several days, until one simple thought rose in my mind. Find one thing to appreciate today. Just one. At first, it felt almost too simple, but I tried it. I noticed the morning light spreading across my living room floor. I noticed the comforting smell of my coffee. I noticed the soft sound of laughter during a phone call with my daughter. And slowly, gratitude became a steady companion rather than a fleeting idea. It lifted the heaviness. It reminded me that even in quiet seasons, life still offers countless reasons to feel grounded and whole. As gratitude grew, something else took shape. Purpose. Not the kind of purpose tied to achievement or accomplishments, but a gentler purpose rooted in being present, being kind, being useful in small but meaningful ways. Purpose no longer looked like climbing ladders or reaching milestones. Instead, it looked like nurturing the relationships that mattered, staying curious, taking care of my health, creating moments of joy for the people around me, and honoring the life I still had. Living with gratitude and purpose does not require grand actions. It requires awareness. It requires slowing down enough to truly see what is in front of you. Retirement gives us the time to pay attention in ways we never could before. And the more I practiced noticing the good, the more I realized that gratitude softens the heart, steadies the mind, and keeps bitterness from taking root. It helps us age with grace instead of frustration. This habit has become one of my greatest gifts to myself, and I hope to the people I love. When my children or grandchildren are around me, I want them to feel the calm that gratitude has created, the steadiness that purpose has shaped. I want them to see that growing older does not mean losing meaning. It means finding new meaning in different places. And if they remember me as someone who appreciated life deeply and lived each day with intention, then that itself is a legacy worth leaving. Habit 6. Maintaining health and independence. As the years added up, I learned that independence is not something to take for granted. It is something to protect with steady, intentional effort. I never longed to be young again, but I did hope to stay myself for as long as life allowed. That meant caring for my body, my mind, and my spirit in ways I once considered optional. In retirement, these habits became essential. I began taking daily walks, sometimes with a neighbor, sometimes alone with my thoughts. These walks cleared my mind, strengthened my legs, and reminded me that movement is a quiet promise we make to our future selves. I paid more attention to what I ate, not out of guilt, but out of respect for the years I have lived. I drank more water, kept my medical appointments, and took my health seriously, not because I feared illness, but because I wanted to stay engaged in the lives of the people I love. Caring for my mind became just as important. I read books more often, learned new things simply for the joy of learning, and stayed curious about the world. Curiosity keeps the spirit awake, and I have found that a curious mind does not grow old as quickly. I also kept myself socially connected, knowing that isolation can weaken us in ways we do not immediately see. Sharing conversations, laughter, and stories with friends and family has become part of my wellness, as important as any exercise. One truth became clear to me: maintaining my health is not just for my benefit. It is a gift to my children and my grandchildren. They may not say it out loud, but I know they worry about me. They hope I stay steady, safe, and capable. Taking care of myself is my way of easing their worries and showing them that I am doing my part to stay strong. Independence is not about stubbornness. It is an expression of love. It allows me to live fully, to contribute meaningfully, and to remain a comforting presence rather than a source of constant concern. And while aging will bring its own challenges, the habits I practice now give me the strength to meet those challenges with dignity. If my family remembers me as someone who took care of myself, someone who stayed active, curious, and engaged, then I will have given them a legacy of resilience and self-respect. Maintaining health and independence is not a battle to stay young. It is a commitment to stay present for as long as life will allow. Habit 7. Planning your legacy thoughtfully. There comes a time in life when we begin to understand that planning for the future is not an act of fear, but an act of love. I reached that point slowly, through quiet reflections and through the realization that the people I care about should never be left guessing about my wishes. Over the years, I had seen families struggle not because they lacked love, but because they lacked clarity. I did not want my children to face that burden. I wanted to give them peace, direction, and the comfort of knowing exactly what I hoped for when I could no longer speak for myself. So I started organizing the practical parts of my life with calm and purpose. I gathered important documents and placed them where my children could find them easily. I made decisions about how I wanted things handled in the later stages of my life, not because such thoughts were pleasant, but because they were necessary. I also wrote letters to each of my children. These letters were not dramatic or formal. They were personal, honest reflections about what I loved, what I learned, and what I hoped they would carry with them long after I was gone. As I worked through these preparations, I felt something unexpected. Instead of sadness, I felt relief. Planning gave me clarity. It gave me a sense of control over the final parts of my story. And more than anything, it gave me a feeling of deep connection to my family, knowing they would not have to make difficult decisions in moments of grief. They would not have to wonder what I wanted or worry about making the wrong choice. I had already taken care of those things for them. I also chose to simplify my belongings. Over a lifetime, it is easy to collect far more than we need. I slowly went through my home, keeping what mattered, giving away what could bless others, and letting go of what no longer carried meaning. This process was gentle, almost meditative. It reminded me of the memories behind each object, but it also taught me that a legacy is not stored in things. It is stored in the love we give, the stories we share, and the lives we touch. Thoughtful planning is not about controlling the future. It is about preparing your family for it with kindness and intention. It shows them that your love continues even in your absence. It spares them confusion, disagreements, and emotional weight during a time when they will need comfort, not complications. When I think about how I want to be remembered, it is not for perfect decisions or flawless plans. It is for the care I put into making life a little easier for the people I love. If my children look back one day and say that I left them clarity, calm, and a sense of being deeply considered, then I will have given them a final gift that reflects the heart of the legacy I hope to leave. Planning your legacy thoughtfully is not a heavy task. It is one of the most tender acts of love we can offer. And in doing so, we ensure that our story ends with the same intention and grace that we tried to live by. A legacy built one day at a time. As I look back over these habits and the long road that led me to them, I realize something simple but powerful. A legacy is not a grand monument. It is not carved in stone or sealed in a document. A legacy is woven slowly through the quiet, ordinary choices we make every single day. It is the tone of our voice, the way we comfort someone we love, the stories we choose to share, the apologies we finally give, and the grace we extend even when it is hard. It is the effort we put into staying healthy, the time we devote to the people who matter, and the clarity we offer through careful planning. There were years when I thought legacy belonged to people with bigger lives than mine, people with great accomplishments or impressive achievements. But life taught me that the most lasting legacies are built in living rooms, at kitchen tables, on front porches, and in the simple human moments that hold families together. Legacy is shaped not by perfection, but by presence. It grows through the love we show, the resilience we practice, and the hope we pass down to those who come after us. Retirement has given me something I never expected: space. Space to reflect, to understand, to appreciate, and to reshape the parts of myself that still needed softening. With that space came clarity. I realized that every day I am still here is a day I can add something meaningful to the story I leave behind. A kind word, a helpful gesture, a moment of patience, a memory shared, a truth spoken gently, a step taken toward better health, a decision made to ease the burden on my family. All of these things matter. All of them add weight to a legacy that does not fade. And if you find yourself in this same season of life, I want you to know something. It is never too late. Not too late to heal a relationship. Not too late to tell someone you love them. Not too late to forgive yourself for things you did not understand at the time. Not too late to begin sharing your wisdom. Not too late to write down your stories. Not too late to shape a legacy that reflects the deepest parts of who you truly are. A beautiful legacy is not about leaving the world with applause. It is about leaving your family with warmth, clarity, and a sense of where they come from. It is about giving them memories that will steady them when life grows difficult. It is about reminding them through your example that kindness matters, presence matters, and love matters above all else. One day, long after my voice grows quiet, I hope my children and grandchildren will feel the echoes of the choices I made. I hope they will hear my laughter in their own, recognize my patience in their moments of calm, and sense my love in the way they care for one another. If they do, then my legacy will live not in stories about me, but in the best parts of themselves. And that, to me, is the most beautiful legacy any of us could hope to leave.